friend, I'm Deborah Larson.
And I'm Katie Shive.
And you're listening to the Redeeming Her podcast, where we aim to create a safe place for honest conversations that will inspire you to discover God's love through your pain. Our goal is to help you reframe your story and find freedom for the future.
So grab a latte and maybe some Kleenex, and let's dive into this week's episode.
Hello, and welcome to Redeeming Her. We are back this week. I'm Deborah Larson, and we have Katie, and we have a guest today, Joanne, and I'm going to let Katie introduce her in just a minute. Yeah. Katie, why don't you formally introduce Joanne to all of our listeners? And we're so excited to hear your story. I know that you guys go back quite a few years. So why don't you tap on that and how you guys met, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So Jo, I call her Jo, but she's Joanne Johnson. I don't know if anybody else calls you Jo, maybe your husband.
Call me JoJo a lot for whatever reason these days. It's JoJo.
Yeah. My kids call you JoJo, which is, I think, very affectionate and endearing. But yeah, so Joanne and I met, back in 2005. I was right out of School of Ministry in Redding, moved down to Orange County to work with their youth at the church that you guys went to. And it just was kind of a kindred spirit, I think, connection really at the beginning. But fun fact, I lived in Joanne's garage, literally. If anybody knows Orange County, it is like one of the most expensive places in the world, or at least the country, to live. And I was like 19, had no money, living on like cereal and peanut butter and jelly. And you graciously literally put some 2x4s and some sheetrock up and built a makeshift bedroom, which still exists to this day.
It's our
cave. There were no windows. Literally, it's on your slab of cement. We put some carpet down, but I lived in your garage and we just did life and family. And your husband, Tim, actually married my husband and I. Mm-hmm. And I've watched your kids grow up, and now they're having babies, and now you guys are pouring back into my kids. And it's been this really sweet connection of 20 years of friendship and all of the seasons. So I'm really excited and honored to have you. You've been in a season of transition in a lot of different ways, and I think our listeners can really relate to seasons of transition. And so I wanted to kick off to just talk a little bit about your recent season of transition. And literally, you're empty nesting. So your kids are all married and out. But talk to us about, just, I guess, catch us up where you've been and what you're transitioning into.
That's a great question. So it's funny, I think it was a year ago, maybe this month or next month, I spoke at our church, has a women's gathering called Bloom. And I talked about the importance of knowing your season, of understanding and knowing your season. And at that time when I spoke, I was like, my season's dialed in. Like, I know my season, everything's steady Eddie. Like, there's nothing happening that I'm not aware of. And within a couple months, it was like everything started to shift. And it's been so much, from family transitions with my youngest daughter moving to Tennessee with our granddaughter and her husband, which was a heart-wrencher, to a ministry that I helped build and was involved in and launching. And we actually published our first set of devotionals in April of just last year, all of a sudden coming to a close and deciding that it was time for that season to be over and everyone kind of stepping into new things. And just, like the things of you think are going to be like the constants that I would have never pictured, so many things in my life kind of ending and transitioning. That were all very heart emotional for me because it was all relational, doing, our family all being here, relationships, the grandbabies, just that vision of like, oh, they're all going to grow up together. They're all going to be close, and all of a sudden that's not the case, and having to shift like, okay, how do I rethink about this? And what is this going to look like moving forward for us as a family? And then also just ministry-wise, just realizing like, oh, wow, this is something I've poured my life into for 12 years. You know, we were like getting ready to launch big and all of a sudden realizing like, oh, this isn't happening. we're actually going the other direction. So it's been a lot of some really just a really kind of season of grieving, letting go, having to dig deeper into trusting the Lord with things that I thought were all figured out and I thought were going to be a certain way, and then all of a sudden it looks very different.
That's a lot, and it's interesting too. You talk about, it wasn't just one aspect of transition. It was really kind of like you've been thrust into seasons of transition with your family and, a ministry that you have helped build and was really relational. And then a lot of it all at the same time, just kind of coming to a stop. How did that impact your identity?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as a mom, you have to really like go through the emotions of, okay, how do I want to frame this? Because if I don't choose to frame this in a way that, that is going to keep my heart and my spirit aligned with high hopes and right beliefs about my family, my connections with them, my connections with my grandbabies, my granddaughter, and, all of that, I would probably stay in a very dark place of sadness and like, oh man, like how am I, what is this? I don't know, just in that place of grieving for longer than I should have been. I truly believe in feeling all the feels when we feel them and allowing ourselves to navigate that and to process that. But I knew I couldn't stay there. So, I had to kind of really rethink about like, what do I want to believe and what do I want my beliefs to be about our family in this transition and our family as a connected family and as a close family? What do I want to choose to position my heart and my beliefs in? And then the same for the ministry in the process of grieving, because it, wasn't just a ministry, but it was friends doing it together. When all of that ends, you're kind of like, okay, what does this look like for us relationally? Because now there's not necessarily that need to connect. And is there a relationship there outside of ministry for us? Like, is that connection strong enough? Is that relational bridge strong enough for us to stay connected? So like you're processing through all of those things. But I think ultimately, and for the ministry part where I had to choose and I continue to choose to land is just the sense of being so grateful. Like grateful for the journey, grateful for all the lives that we got to touch, grateful for the people that we impacted, grateful for what I learned in the areas of growth that were in my personal walk with the Lord, but even in leadership and how to lead and how to be a part of a team and the things that God did in me and releasing our devotional. And like that was birthed out of that ministry. And that was like a goal, like a beginning of a goal of writing for me. And so it was I'm just choosing to be grateful and choosing to be thankful. And then of course there's moments of, I think when we're all coming out of like big transitions, there's places where you get hit with like emotional, like things will happen and you're like, it hits your heart. Right. And then you have to go back through all of that with, the Lord and Holy Spirit and speak to me about this. And what are you saying? And what am I supposed to be positioning my heart and my thoughts and related to this situation or this issue or this circumstance or this person in relationship that I'm having, or maybe we're not having as much relationship as we did before because of the distance or because we're not in ministry together. So it's been a lot of like true depth of heart navigation and really having to choose high levels of beliefs and hope that I've had to really press into. It's like work. Because as we know with like brain science, your brain can tend to go into a groove. It's a pattern of like thought that you've had for a long time. And so it's like retraining myself to think differently and having to really be intentional about that.
So good.
I think just being of the same age bracket in transition in life, I really think the word intentional is like front and center of our worlds right now. And I think everybody might be facing that, maybe not defining it as such, but whether you have relationship or you're moving in one direction or another, even like I mentioned earlier before we got on the show, when things are shifted for you, it's probably a little bit more overwhelming than if you had been in the flow and the move during that time and making those decisions. And that's where I think I'm hearing you grounding in the truth of the Spirit is for me the anchor. It is the anchor for my soul, because otherwise you can drift from one to the other. And there are moments that we do that, right? And so I'd be interested to hear how the Lord is directing you in that measure, because I know that you're grounded in the Spirit, and I know that you listen and care. And so is he speaking any kind of direction for you, or is he giving you just time off to regroup and find yourself?
Yeah, I'm kind of coming out of the time off season. It kind of started back probably in late March of last year, when we were told that by my daughter and son-in-law that they were moving to Tennessee. And so that started the process of like, okay, our whole world is shifting. And it wasn't like we're moving in a year. It was like, we're moving in a couple months. So it was just a big shock. And then also like having just to navigate all of the emotions in that. And, so it kind of started there. And then it's just been months of like these things happening, and again, like with the ministry, like we did a book launch in April, but then the next thing I know, like we're shifting as a ministry and we're processing that. And so there's been months of kind of this happening. And then really starting September, it got very quiet. Like my world from all of the things, my daughter's gone, my granddaughter's not living here, the family stuff is different. My other children who are here, which I'm so grateful for, he's a fireman, she's an ER nurse. So their schedules are all over the place. So, it's just a different rhythm that you're navigating and getting used to. And then, all the things that you were connected to because of this ministry are all of a sudden just no longer there. So everything got very quiet. And I am, as Katie knows, we're kind of a little similar in this. I'm like tend to be a doer, and like have things going, and I'm an out and about kind of girl. And so it just became like this very still space. And so in that, like, that was like a big kind of readjusting, like, what do I want? Like, what do I want this next season to look like for my life? What is the Lord saying for me personally, outside of things that I might do collaboratively with other people, or things that I know that, people are kind of like starting to talk about and invite me into, but I'm like, what is it that I'm supposed to do? And what is it you're asking me to put my hand to? Because I just have a high value for time and intentionality. And so I want my time to be used wisely. And, we're the same age, like you're saying, Deborah, we're the same age. So it's kind of like you're thinking about, what can I do with my time that's super valuable? Because I really want to honor the Lord with my time. I really want to be intentional in my relationships. I really want to be intentional with the gifts he's given me and the things that he's called me or asked me to do. And what are the things I'm not doing because I've had these distractions, of good things, but they pulled my time and attention from actually purposes he's put in my heart for me personally to step into or to walk out. So it's kind of like a big readjustment, because I'm like a come alongside girl. Like, you have a dream, let me help you. I'll come bring it to fruition with you. I will do whatever you need. And then the things that I have, my dreams in my heart, I'm like, they never happen because I'm helping everybody else accomplish their dreams. And so, Katie's nodding because we do this a lot. So it's kind of like that thing of like, the Lord's like, well, Joanne, you do it. Like, why are you waiting for somebody else to acknowledge that or to be excited about that with you? Like, I put it in your heart because I'm actually asking you to do this. So you do it, you start it, you begin it, and I'm like, oh gosh, okay, here we go. It's just been a really like a dying season to like all the things that I thought were going to be, and really having to surrender them at the altar and go, okay, what am I going to start with you, Lord, that personally, maybe business, directionally, ministry, but also, again, like surrendering the family piece, and what does that look like? And how do I trust you in a new way with this whole piece that's so, important to my heart? And one of, the highest values that I have, of course, is, family and connection. So it's been a journey. It's been a journey. But this new year, when we, Caitlin knows this, we just finally kind of with the ministry piece, we just kind of officially closed it out with all of our community and followers and, the women that we've done conferences with for years and years and that follow us on social media, just kind of updating them on the journey of here's what's going on for each of us and celebrating what we got to do together. And it was hard, it was like hard for me to go, this is actually happening. But then within like 24 hours or the next day after that official email went out, and people were texting me and like, oh my gosh, I'm so sad to hear this. And da 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 da. And, you're going through the emotions again of like, yeah, I know. But I felt like it. I finally felt that release of the grief. It's finished and it was amazing. And I'm so grateful. And I feel freedom to step into new things because there's nothing holding me back anymore. There's nothing tethering me, which, when you're kind of in that space of in between, you're like, is this still going to like happen? Are we still going to maybe make this work? Or is this like actually an ending? It's kind of those strange things of, my husband and I were on staff at our church vineyard that Katie was at for several years. And I remember when we decided like, we've been on staff for, 7 years, 8 years, and we felt the Lord calling us back to the marketplace. We didn't see vision for ourselves being in full-time ministry, 10 years out at that particular church. And so I remember the Lord speaking to us and saying, when we leave a place, it's not like we can tend to think of it as like something dying or something like kind of like in our hearts or our minds, maybe like, oh, I just feel really bad about this. Like I failed or something's wrong or it didn't work out. But he's like, this is actually promotion because everything builds, right? The seasons of our lives build unto the next season. And we're seasonal beings. We live in seasons with the Lord. And so it's like a recognition of like, this season is over, but I learned so much that I needed for what's next. And I built relationships and connections here for what's next. And my relational world may shift because the season's over, but there's opportunity for new connections because we all need each other to get to where we're going. So there's other people that come into my relational world or my relational kingdom, as I like to call it. And that's important too, to have space for that. And if I'm so tethered to the last season and so holding on to things that God's like, I need you to let go of that because I have something new over here, I won't be able to fully embrace and experience and step into that, holding on or feeling tethered back over here in this old season. So does that make sense?
100%. I feel like a lot of our listeners are probably in that same place, right, Kate?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just like you said, I mean, it's like, it's so hard, I think, in the kingdom to like have your foot in two seasons.
I like routine. I like to know. I grieve. I'm just like, that's not my favorite thing.
You avoid it.
I know. And in this process, I feel like the Lord's been teaching me like, embrace transition because it's going to happen over and over and over. Like this is because again, seasonal beings, like it's part of our journey, our life here. We will be in lots of different transitions and to not be so stuck in that place of, I don't want to move on, or I don't want to make new relationships because I'm like connected here and I don't want to lose this. And it's like, again, rethinking, reframing that. I'm not losing this. I'm actually just embracing something else and something more. And this is still just as valuable and just as precious to me, but the connection might look different.
One of the things I think about, because I don't really know anybody that loves transition, it can just be uncomfortable because we all tend to be creatures of comfort and we like dependability and security and all of those things. But when I think of transition, the more that you know the heart of the Father, the more that you align yourself to Him and His nature, the more that we can see, hey, when we go through a season of transition, but I know who you are, whatever is next or on the other side of this is going to be better because He is good and His purpose and His heart for us is always growth and success and connection. So, in the natural sense, I think we all tend to avoid transition. But if we look at it through the heart of the Father, it's like, oh, there's actually opportunity. There's an invitation into, the new thing. And that's one of the things I was talking to you about last week is in our culture, I think we say, what's the next thing? Like you left your job or you're moving. So what's next, right? How often is that in our vernacular? But I heard somebody once say, God's not doing the next thing. He's doing a new thing. And I love that because a lot of times our brain is just kind of limited in our thinking of like, oh, what's next? But really, if we can say, Father, like, what is the new thing? So I'd be curious on your thoughts on that in terms of connecting your heart to His character through transition and how you have seen the invitation into his goodness as you transition into your new thing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like that quiet kind of space that he's had me in where, I mean, literally where it's like no one's texting me, no one's calling me. I mean, I'm like such a connected relational person. And it was kind of like, I was like, what is happening right now? It just, everything got super quiet and very still. And, so just for me, it was like connecting with his heart in that space of the stillness and the quiet and going, okay, like, obviously you are intentionally putting me in this little space and quiet with you. So speak to me. You know, I'm here, like I'm listening. I don't need to go anywhere. I don't need to do anything. I don't want to do anything outside of your hand being on it with me. Because we can all do great things. We can all do things, right? Like we're natural doers, I think, as women, because we care and we take care of things and we see things and we're passionate about things. And there's always things we can be doing. But it was kind of, for me, you know, part of it was just going, okay, am I okay to just be me and just not have anything else going on? And just like kind of dialing into that. And what does that look like? And what do you want to say to me about myself? And what do you want me to know and carry into whatever's next? You know, just hands open. You know, I don't want to control anything. I don't want to make anything happen. I'm just surrendered, you know, here in this moment with you and just letting you lead. And so there was that component, you know, for me of just connecting with his heart in that space of quiet and stillness. And then, you know, also wanting to not do things or say yes to things because of my past experience, or like, I don't want to start something up and then be disappointed again. I don't want to step into something and have it not work out. I don't want to make connections and feel like, you know, those connections might not be what I hope they would be, because we all in the transitions can deal with that piece of disappointment in people, disappointment in how things turned out, disappointment in the Lord, and, you know, it's
Right.
all of those things related to whatever the circumstance may be, or whatever the crisis may be, or whatever we're personally dealing with. So having again to just go, you know, Lord, what is it you want me to know about this next season of my life? And what is it you're saying? And so he was really specific with me. He was very intentional in his caring for my heart and tending to my heart. It couldn't have happened if I hadn't have just had that slowing down, because my personality would be to fill the moments and probably to avoid a bit of the pain. What
I
can
know
do?
nothing about that.
What can I do? How busy can I make myself to not feel what I don't want to feel? Right. And so just, you know, again, that intentionality of just like him going, I'm sitting you down for a while and it's going to get really quiet and I need you to listen and I need you to trust me. So that was the journey.
That's a
I
good
think
word.
it takes a lot of courage to lean in, especially like you said, when we can keep ourselves busy with good things. Like I have done that so many times where it's like, well, it's not a bad thing. It's not sin. It's not, you know, anything, but you're just filling that time. And I think when we do lean in and we sit, that's the invitation for the more, because it's usually never about actually the fulfillment of the next thing. Like God doesn't need us to do anything to advance his purpose. It's always about transforming us. And it's always about connecting us back to his heart. And so that slowness is, you know, the fruit of that is always connecting back to him.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important when we're especially going through transitions, or it's places where you're experiencing a lot of grief or emotion, to allow yourself to allow yourself to be still with the Lord in those, so that he can actually tend to your heart. Because I knew I didn't want to take that into the new thing, whatever that was. Like I had no idea what it was. I didn't know what things would look like, but I knew that I needed to process my heart, and I needed to process the grief, and I needed to process all of the disappointment and the different things, so that I could step into the new thing and not be carrying that with me, or have an unresolved heart condition going on for me in potential new relationships or new opportunities. And so that my heart was just really pure, and I felt like I was in a good place to receive whatever you wanted to do, and I could really hear clearly from him and not have a filter of grief or disappointment or loss and filtering everything through that. So that was a big kind of motivator for me as well.
So good.
I can say that he has said to me several times before the end of last year that don't be surprised when I'm moving people in and out of your life. It's not necessarily bad. It's not necessarily wrong, but sometimes he's going to take good people out to make room for others that are necessary for the platform that he's preparing. I was just writing last night about a summary of Psalms 139. And I love the Passion Translation because it always makes it so personal. And it was like he was just speaking, I'm always in your future, preparing for that next arrival. There's always something I have moving and stirring because I've not only placed it in your heart, but I have developed it in your heart. And sometimes you've tucked it away and you haven't been willing to look at it. So I want you to look at it because now I'm going to move you in that direction. And it is the zone of uncomfortable. It really is. But I want to applaud your pathway because part of what we do here is talk about reframing a story and setting our mindset in a position for others that maybe have an overwhelm that they can't get through and they haven't yet learned to connect to the voice of God. And I keep hearing, gosh, Joanne, tell us how you hear him. Describe how you hear him because all of us hear and receive differently. My messages come from the words. Sometimes they're from pictures. Sometimes it's just rolling in my spirit when I wake up, and it sounds like my voice. But for you, you've been in this season of your life and all the different ones that have transitioned. How do you hear the Lord and how has it changed for you?
That's such a good question because I think, again, like the seasons of connection with even the Lord, like there's times where the season of connecting with him is really through his word for me. There's times when it's, in the stillness. There's times when it's in worship, and so it's kind of morphed, through, I think probably whatever I'm going through or what he knows I need personally. It can be the still small voice, right? It can be the thought that interrupts your thought, because I'm always asking him, interrupt my thoughts, if I'm not thinking right, interrupt my thoughts. So I think he's just so kind and intentional with us, just as like we want to be intentional, in our lives. Like I believe he is so intentional with us. So I feel like a lot of it comes from like, he knows what I need more than I know. So he's going to speak to me in whatever way I need to hear from him. So recently it's really been, again, in that place of stillness, quiet, which is, again, not my normal. It's more, like just literally sitting with him with my journal and a pen and asking him questions and just listening and not necessarily like trying to think of anything, but just letting that still small voice speak to me. And very connected through worship with the Holy Spirit and with the Lord. So for me, like I try to in these times or seasons to find places where I can just engage in worship, whether it's just blasting it in my home or going to worship nights at our church or, just being with people or friends and we worship together, in our home group or, whatever we're doing with community, just to get in those spaces where I can be still and I can just focus on him and get my eyes locked with his and just let him speak to me. So he's just been so kind and so really truly intentional with me in this season and really talking to me and speaking to me. And then of course, like I'm a firm believer, and I know Caitlin knows this about me, and relationships and the value, such a high value for connection and relationships. So even in the stillness for me, when it's like was first hard to hear because of all that was going on, having the right people in my relational world who could speak into my life and say, this is what I'm hearing for you. This is what I feel like the Lord wants you to believe about what's happening right now. This is what I'm hearing him say over you. And those were lifelines for me, because sometimes when it's quiet, sometimes it's even quiet in the stillness with the Lord, and it's hard to hear when you're in pain. And so having that community and those relationships that were so vital for me this last year to say, hey, this is what God's saying. This is what I'm hearing for you. This is what he's speaking to me about what you're, going through. And again, like taking those words, writing them out, decreeing and declaring them back to the Lord. Like, this is what you're saying. And so I'm believing you and I'm contending over this. And I'm not going to let you go until I have my heart connected to this truth with you, and it's a battle. It's like, it's work, and it's kind of a fight sometimes to work through all of that to get there. But that's really, those three elements for me were really kind of the pieces of hearing him in the season.
Kind of like to distract myself in worship. So it shuts out my thoughts and my other things that are always interrupting. You forgot this, you've got to get this, the time is coming, because it feels like when we sit before the Lord, all the chaos and the shoulda, do, and you've got this, and someone's the responsibilities of your life. And then that person you said you'd get back to and you didn't get back to yet. There's so many holes on our life. But what I really value the most is that when I understand this is the voice of God, when it interrupts my normal thought process to identify this is the voice I'm not familiar with, that I need to learn to get familiar with. And I think sometimes in our church world, we have a vernacular too, and how those things work. But I've had so many people ask me, Deborah, how do you hear God? How do you walk in that space? And I'm like, I just talk to him out loud. I'm not an out loud processor, but when I'm by myself, I'm like, okay, I'm totally frustrated about this. I need to understand. And then I just sit there for a second to get that interruption, and sometimes it doesn't come. And then I'll go do something because that frustration in me, I just want to get it out. And so we'd either go for a run, or I jumped on my Peloton the other day. I was like, I just need to move. And you're not feeling productive. And then there's those times you don't want to be productive and you get the interruption. So I think it's great when we can recognize that voice that comes, because it does kind of all come in our same tone, right? It's like, you feel like you're talking to yourself, but I've learned to hear a different tone of the Spirit. When he would say to me, I said, but I want to do what you want me to do. And he says, I want you to know what you want to do. And part of that in the development, being in our future, pulling us there, is actually having to sit in that space and go, yes, okay, I want this, but do I really want it? Because now it's in front of you. Are you ready to take that step?
Right.
And it's beautiful to hear how you paused and let things go, recognizing that you had to make room so that there'd be this space. And I just applaud that. I know that so many of us struggle with that because we don't know that we have junk in our trunk. We don't know that we're carrying around something until you sit still long enough and then recognize, okay, this is something different than what I've ever felt before.
Yes, absolutely. And especially when it's like navigating things you never thought you'd have to navigate, right? Or letting go of things you never thought you'd was not on your grid, and that's kind of the year has been like so many things happening that were not at all on my radar. I had no idea they were coming. And just, really having to lean in a new way and to really pause, forced pause, which I'm grateful for, and, I'm saying, I need you to be still. I need you to sit down and be still. And I have things I need to talk to you about, and I need to deal with your heart. And so it was painful, but good. And I'm so grateful that, again, we're always going to have things because life is about seasons and transitions, but just to know, he's just that good. He loves us so much, and he's just that good.
Yeah, I love that. So what encouragement would you offer to somebody that's listening today that might really identify with your season? It might look different, obviously, for them, but really is like, yep, I am in the thick of transition and this is really uncomfortable and I want to stay busy, or I feel afraid to lean in. What would you say to that person that's there? Or what would you say to yourself 9 months ago?
I know, so many things, but I think there's multiple things I'm thinking about that question. I think it would be lean into the Lord. Don't be so afraid to let go of what you have now, to not be able to embrace what he wants to give you. It's kind of like that thing of, I'm sure everyone's seen this little meme or something where the Lord's asking this little girl to hand her, her little teddy bear. And he's got this giant one behind him that he wants to give to her, but she doesn't want to let go of this little tiny teddy bear, and it's kind of that thing of like, don't be holding on so tight to the things that you're doing or that are happening or even relationships that so tightly that you're not being open-handed with the Lord and just constantly in that place of like, Lord, I'm grateful for this, but I don't want to control or to hold on too tightly to things where it would hinder you moving me into the other spaces or the new relationships that you have for me to get me to where you want me to be or to help me accomplish the thing you put in my heart to do, or to even just, navigate the new that you have for me. So it's kind of like a surrendered, like leaning into the surrendering. And then also don't be afraid to do the things that you need to do. Like for me, I had to plug into some like counseling because I couldn't navigate all of my heart on my own. So I really was like, I don't know what to do with all of this. And I don't want to go to friends with all of the things because, they love me. And so they're not going to be as objective, so I wanted to have more of a objective input. And, so I did that. I plugged into Bethel's Transformation Center and did some counseling through them to just process and navigate some of those spaces in my heart that were really crucial. And I felt like I needed to deal with. So don't be afraid to do that, to do something different. Like I didn't know if it was going to work. I didn't know if it was going to be good, but I thought I've got to do something, and so I wanted to do something different and not just do the traditional routes of what I would normally do. So just ask the Lord what that would be for you, like how to navigate the heart stuff and the grief and the things that are coming up and not embrace those, and I think in our Christian culture, we kind of tend to go like, well, Jesus is good. He's fine. Like all's going to be well. I'm good. He's got me.
Rainbows and unicorns.
Yes. And it's not true. I mean, it's true, but our emotions are valid and our feelings are valid. And so if I'm constantly shoving those under the surface because I'm just, going to be good because Jesus is good, I'm not actually going to be able to step into and to embrace and to actually walk out the season well and transition well, because the stuff is just going to be all in the mix and it's actually going to be a filter for me. And I want to have a clean filter, So I hope that answers your question. It's kind of multi-layered, but that's kind of really what was my process, is really like leaning in hard to the Lord and being still and in the uncomfortability of being still, and then doing something different with my process and my grief and my pain and how to process it. And then really just making sure my heart was pure because I wanted to not miss anything that he had for me and to be open to whatever the new was for me and the new thing that he was doing.
One of the things the Lord has shown me to do in seasons of transition is when I feel so afraid to like let this go or give this up, he has me ask him, Lord, what do you have in exchange? So it's not just, oh, I'm giving this up into this big unknown, but his goodness always meets me of like, ask me what I want to give to you in exchange for that. And so it's making this exchange of like, Father, I'm going to give you this, but what are you going to give back? And not out of a place of expectation or entitlement, but really out of a place of validating and helping me feel safe. And that's been a really sweet tool as you lead in. What do you have for me?
And I would say too, really quickly, that a big thing I have been working on is my beliefs, for the last 2 years, like really dialing into what do I believe? And if I'm having low levels of hope in an area of my life, what lie might I be partnered with or believing about this relationship or situation or circumstance? And really spending time in that with him. And then also asking him, what are you saying? Whether it's, he's given me a scripture, whether he's actually spoken something to my heart. And I'm taking that and I'm kind of worrying over those areas with him in terms of like declarations and making new decrees, because a decree is something that's not established yet, right? So a declaration is something that's, already been established, but a decree is something new that's not established. And so kind of partnering with the Lord in that and the Holy Spirit in that. And actually that shifts my hope levels. It shifts my heart and my beliefs and my truth of what my mind is choosing to fix itself on. And just also making those declarations, like you said, Deborah, like out loud, like talking to him out loud, praying, making those declarations out loud, because I truly believe our words create worlds and atmospheres around us. And so I want to be speaking, the truth. I want to be speaking life and hope and making decrees and declarations about all of the things that are most important to me that he's highlighting and what he's speaking to me. And so really stewarding those pieces as well in that space of prayer, declaration, and, decrees.
Very good. Very good. I think that's a place where courage meets wisdom. When we take that initial step, that courage, even if it feels so meager to you, it's powerful. And when you step forward with that, I believe it's that place that the wisdom of God will really escort you over to whatever that is. If it's just facing the moment, if it's making a decree, if it's saying I'm uncomfortable or grieving or what have you, I love the hand of God that he escorts us to the places because he is our refuge. He's our place that we can camp and live in. And everything he does is life-giving. So I know this, he has something very full and rich for your future. And it's very life-giving. And I think you're going to be more refreshed than you deliver others in assistance this time. I think it's going to be focused more on your desires. And the joy set before you is that hope that we're looking for, right?
Amen. Yes.
It is great.
Thank you. I love
Thank
it.
you.
Well, thank you for joining us on our episode today. If somebody wants to connect with you, we'll put this in the show notes, but what's the best place for somebody to connect with you?
They can connect on Instagram at Joanne C. Johnson. And they can also connect with me at joannecjohnson.com. There's a lot on there of just how to connect and how to stay in touch with things that are happening and new things that are coming.
And your book's on there as well. So,
yes.
Well, we'll put those in the show notes. So if anybody wants to connect personally with Joanne, and we'll make sure that that's available. And thank you so much for joining us. Everybody that's listening, you know what to do. Hit the like and subscribe. Leave us a comment if there is a question that you have or a subject that you would love for us to cover. We want to hear from you because this is a show for you. And so with that, thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in with us. We pray that you're encouraged and find the truth that will set you free on your journey.
To learn more about Redeeming Her ministry or how to partner with us, please check the show notes for links or visit redeemingher.com. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode.